Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I am Isha Hanspal. On the show today, well, let's take a look at that first. The UN has said that the Israeli restrictions on the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza causing deliberate starvation may amount to a war crime. While aid agencies blame Israel for blockading Gaza, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government says it is facilitating aid and the UN and the relief groups are at fault for any issues.
Well, also on the show, we will be bringing you more details coming in from Hong Kong, where lawmakers on Tuesday unanimously passed a new national security bill within 2 weeks of it being presented. It fast-tracks a major piece of legislation that critics say further threatens the China-ruled city's freedoms. The sentences under Article 23 will range from several years to life imprisonment. What implications will it have? We will be bringing you the latest on that, this and a lot more in the next 60 minutes on World DNA. Let's get you started with the headlines.
The US Supreme Court allows a Republican-backed Texas law that allows state law enforcement authorities to arrest people suspected of illegally crossing the US-Mexico border, rejects bid to block it by Biden administration.
Top former US generals say failures of Biden administration in planning drove chaotic fall of Kabul. The generals also criticized the US embassy in Kabul for obstructing coordination on a possible evacuation plan.
Israel's restrictions on humanitarian aid for Gaza may amount to a starvation tactic that could be a war crime. This according to the United Nations Human Rights Chief.
North Korea's Kim Jong-un oversees a ground test of a solid fuel engine for a new type of intermediate range hypersonic missile. This as part of a program of developing national defense capability.
The city of WION is tense in the state of Uttar Pradesh in India. This after a local barber hacked 2 boys to death and critically hurt a third in an axe attack. He was gunned down in an encounter hours later.
Paula Badosa spoils Simona Halep's return from a doping ban. The former world number 2 battles back to win the opening round in Miami. Badosa will face Arina Sabalenka in what is sure to be an emotion-packed match.
Well, it wasn't to be the fairy tale return for Halep, but that is a brilliant win for Badosa. Given what the Spanish...
Well, a top story, Israel's military says it has killed dozens of militants in its ongoing raid at the biggest hospital in the Gaza Strip. The military said on Tuesday that forces also arrested around 300 suspects.
It was not possible to confirm whether those killed were combatants or not. Now, Israeli forces released footage showing what they say are weapons found at Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. Now, in the video, an Israeli soldier can be seen uncovering a Kalashnikov rifle and a rocket-propelled grenade launcher.
Now, Israel launched the raid at Shifa Hospital earlier in the week, saying Hamas had regrouped in the compound and was directing attacks from it. The military said gunmen fired on its forces from inside and that one of its soldiers was killed during the raid. The army said it killed a senior Hamas militant who was armed and hiding inside the hospital. Palestinian officials said he was a senior commander in the Hamas-run police who was coordinating the protection of convoys.
Shifa, like most of Gaza's hospitals, has nearly stopped functioning for lack of electricity, fuel and supplies. Gaza officials said around 30,000 Palestinians were sheltering there at the time of this week's raid. Now, the Israeli military said that its troops had raided a terrorist structure used by the deputy battalion commander of the Khan Yunis Brigade, Ahmad Klab. They claimed to have discovered a large amount of a lot of weapons inside. The operation, which they claimed allowed for the rapid elimination of terrorist cells, was aided by intelligence and precision aerial assistance.
Now, the Israeli officials stated a Palestinian gunman shot and wounded 2 security forces before he was killed in the West Bank. The Shin Bet security agency said the 2 security forces were on patrol near an intersection south of Jerusalem when they were attacked on Tuesday. As per the Israeli officials, the security forces returned fire and killed the assailant. Violence has surged in the West Bank since Hamas's October 7th attacks triggered Israel's war in Gaza, and tensions have been further heightened by Ramadan.
Hamas has called on Palestinians to attack Israelis during the holy month. Last week, a Gaza-born Palestinian who lived in southern Israel killed a soldier at a busy roadside coffee shop. Over 60,000 residents living in Israeli towns and communities bordering Lebanon have fled after almost 6 months of fighting with Hezbollah.
Lebanon as the July war. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spurned a plea from Joe Biden to call off a planned ground assault on Rafah.
Rafah is the last refuge in Gaza for more than 1 million displaced people, where Israel believes Hamas militants are holed up. Palestinian officials say armed and masked men from an array of clans and factions have started providing security for aid convoys in Gaza.
In fact, as Hamas tries to keep its cloud, convoys of trucks are entering Gaza city with foreign aid overnight, watched by several men armed with AK-47 assault rifles and others wielding sticks.
Now, Israeli forces are going all out to eliminate Hamas since its deadly October 7th raid.
Officials did not identify the clans and factions but said Hamas's ability to rally such groups behind it over security showed it retains influence. They stated efforts by Israel to build its own administrative system to keep order in Gaza are being resisted. Now, Gaza has large traditional family clans affiliated with political factions including Hamas and Fatah, which dominates the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. Some of the larger clans are widely believed to be heavily armed.
Starving children are filling hospital wards in Gaza as famine looms on Monday. The world's hunger watchdog, the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, issued a grim warning. It said that without urgent action, famine will hit between now and May in northern Gaza, where 300,000 people are trapped by fighting. The review's most likely scenario said extremely critical levels of acute malnutrition and mortality were imminent for more than 2/3 of the people in the north.
The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification is made up of UN agencies and global aid groups. In fact, disease is aggravating the dire lack of food, dehydration from diarrhea, which is rampant in the mass tent cities, where displaced people cram together without proper sewage or clean water, hastens malnutrition. The United Nations Human Rights Chief said Israel's restrictions on humanitarian aid for Gaza may amount to a starvation tactic that could be a war crime.
Israel, as the occupying power, has the obligation to ensure the provision of food and medical care to the population commensurate with their needs and to facilitate the work of humanitarian organisations to deliver that assistance. Israel must ensure that the population can access this aid in a safe and dignified manner.
The UK Foreign Ministry said over 2,000 tons of British food aid has crossed into Gaza via Jordan and is being distributed by WION World Food Programme to families in need. A US-based charity said a consignment of almost 200 tons of food aid had reached starving people in northern Gaza on Tuesday. It reached a week after being dispatched via maritime route from the Cypriot port of Larnaca.
The World Central Kitchen, working with the UAE and Spanish charity Open Arms, sent the food via the 322-kilometer sea route from Larnaca to a makeshift jetty of Gaza. The consignment arrived off Gaza on Friday. Now, the two top former U.S. generals have blamed the Biden administration for the chaotic departure of U.S. forces from Afghanistan. Former chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, retired General Mark Milley, and former commander of U.S. Central Command, retired General Kenneth McKenzie, made the comments as they testified before U.S. lawmakers.
Well, the rare public testimony for the first time highlighted the strain and differences the military leaders faced during the final days in Afghanistan back in 2021. The general said that the military advised the Biden administration to keep at least 2,500 service members in order to maintain stability. Along with this, they blamed the State Department for delaying the evacuation of U.S. citizens from Afghanistan in 2021.
I was concerned by the middle of July. I was concerned about the different pace of Department of Defense planning as compared to Department of State planning. Having a plan is one thing, preparing the plan, vetting the plan, coordinating the plan with the people that are going to actually carry you out, the Department of Defense, that's another set of tasks completely.
The remarks contrasted with an internal White House review of the administration's decisions. Now, as per report, found that President Joe Biden's decisions have been constrained by previous withdrawal agreements negotiated by former President Donald Trump. The chaotic withdrawal of the U.S. forces from Afghanistan created a panic situation in the country.
In 2021, thousands of Afghans and U.S. citizens desperately tried to get on U.S. military flights. U.S. forces were able to rescue more than 130,000 civilians before the final U.S. military aircraft departed. In the final days, 13 U.S. service members were killed after they were attacked by a suicide bomber at the Kabul airport.
Now, since the U.S. departure, the Taliban have controlled Afghanistan that have led to many dramatic changes for the population. This includes the loss of rights for women and girls in the country.
Yes.
Former White House trade advisor Peter Navarro's prison sentence has begun. Navarro was Donald Trump's close aide during the latter's presidential term.
In fact, before turning himself in, Trump's ex-aide was seen addressing the media in Miami, accusing the quote-unquote partisan weaponization of the country's judicial system. Navarro also lashed out at the Democrats for prosecuting him in what he calls an absurd case.
I'm pissed. That's what I'm feeling right now. But I'm also afraid of only one thing. I'm afraid for this country, because what they're doing should have a chilling effect on every American, regardless of their party. If they come for me, they can come for you.
The former Trump aide is currently serving a 4-month prison sentence for his refusal to cooperate with a congressional investigation into the Capitol Hill riots on January 6, 2021. This after a jury convicted Navarro last September of 2 misdemeanor counts of contempt of Congress for defying the committee's subpoena. With the Supreme Court denying his request to avoid jail time, Navarro becomes the first senior member of the Trump administration to be imprisoned for actions related to the attempt to overturn the former president's 2020 election loss.
Now, to remind the viewers of what happened on January 6th, more than 3 years ago. Hundreds of Trump supporters had stormed to Capitol Hill on a cold January morning in 2021 to prevent the Congress from certifying Biden's 2022 victory over the Republican leader. Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Listen to this.
By reporting to federal prison in Miami, Peter Navarro makes history as the first former White House official to be imprisoned for a contempt of Congress conviction. Navarro's punishment for evading a House probe will boost the leverage lawmakers from both parties have to secure cooperation in their investigations moving forward. For decades, the two branches of government have engaged in a game of chicken over the protection that surrounds the presidency and how Congress enforces subpoenas. There have been incentives from both sides to negotiate a deal rather than take the issue to court. In this case, the Justice Department took the uncommon step of prosecuting a former White House official. Now, the question is whether or not this move by the Justice Department opened a can of worms for retaliatory measures. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, in the United States, the Supreme Court has allowed the state of Texas to enforce a law that gives the police broad powers to arrest migrants suspected of illegally crossing the border.
Well, the law known as Senate Bill 4 has been challenged by the Biden administration on the grounds of being unconstitutional in nature. The Joe Biden administration says that the law is a clear violation of federal authority that would upset more than a century of immigration authority. Notably, the court didn't address whether the law is unconstitutional.
It's a sad day for our democracy because the United States Supreme Court, using all of its powers or minimizing its own powers, is allowing SB 4 to be enacted in Texas, thereby allowing other rogue states like Texas to pass patchwork immigration enforcement bills in their own states. We already saw SB 1070 in Arizona was struck down as unconstitutional. This bill is much worse than SB 1070 from Arizona in 2012.
I think it passes constitutional muster. I think it's the right policy for the state of Texas. We have to have a secure border. And that's not just a Republican, ideal. That is independents, that is swing voters, that's even some Democrats who want a secure border. So SB 4 goes a long way to address that, and it should be the law in the state of Texas.
The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, praised the Supreme Court's order on the law, in fact, calling it a positive development in a post on social media platform X. The Texas Governor Abbott also argued that the law does not conflict with the federal law of the United States.
Meanwhile, Mexican Foreign Minister Alicia Bárcena has called the SB 4 law anti-immigrant and xenophobic.
Signed into law in December last year, Senate Bill 4, also known as SB 4, is part of Greg Abbott's border security program worth $12 billion. Under the program, the governor has planted razor wire and built a floating fence along the border to prevent the illegal entry of migrants from the neighboring country of Mexico.
The southwestern state of Mexico shares 3,145 kilometers. That longer border with Mexico has witnessed regular incidents of illegal border crossings in recent years. Now, the leaders of Texas say that the new law SB 4 is needed to curb the influx of migrants. Is Ukraine on the brink of a catastrophe? Recently, Russia has amped up its aggression on Ukraine, but to defend itself from the Russian troops, Ukraine urgently awaits more weapons.
Exactly, and that to weapons from the West. And now US Defense Secretary has warned that Ukraine's survival is in danger.
So when we invest in Ukraine's security, we invest in our own security. And we strengthen this contact group's shared vision of an open world of rules and rights and responsibilities. Today, Ukraine's survival is in danger, and America's security is at risk. And they don't have a day to waste, and we don't have a day to spare either.
leading the monthly meeting known as the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, a meeting attended by some 50 allies backing Kiev. American Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin made the warning that Ukraine's survival is in danger from Vladimir Putin's invasion. Austin seeks to convince allies that America is committed towards Kiev, even as Washington has essentially run out of money to continue arming Ukrainian forces.
And Ukraine's friends continue to come up with innovative solutions to make key new commitments to provide Ukraine with urgently needed capabilities, especially air defense and armor and artillery ammunition. And our allies and partners continue to step up. And the United States must also.
The American Defense Secretary tried to pile pressure on Republicans to stop blocking a huge new aid package. In fact, the Republican House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson has so far refused to call a vote on a bill that would provide $60 billion aid for Ukraine. Due to this, the White House has been scrambling to find ways to send assistance to Ukraine, which has been battling Russian forces for more than 2 years. And amidst this, European support has become increasingly key for Ukraine, with Biden unable to get a big aid package for Ukraine through the Congress, and much of his foreign policy energy is now focused on the war in Gaza.
Moreover, Ukrainian president has yet again appealed to Kiev's allies to supply more air defenses. Zelensky says Russia has launched 130 missiles, more than 320 attack drones and almost 900 guided bombs in attacks this month alone.
The International Monetary Fund is seeing a dramatic rise in borrowing from its member countries, and this surge is being driven by a combination of factors creating economic instability around the world. Our next report explains what it means for the global economy.
The International Monetary Fund is witnessing a surge in borrowing from its member countries. IMF's outstanding credit has climbed to a near record high of $151 billion as of February 2024. With over 100 countries seeking IMF support, this trend highlights the growing pressure on nations struggling to navigate a turbulent global landscape. The current outstanding loans represent a relatively small portion of the global economy. However, it's fairly bigger compared to the IMF's $1 trillion total liquidity support. IMF's $1 trillion total liquidity support. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva warns of a stark reality awaiting the global community amid widening income disparities. The long-term impact of increased borrowing on countries remain to be seen. While immediate financial support helps elevate small-term pressures, the burden of repaying loans can create future challenges. Moreover, the IMF's lending decisions can be influenced by geopolitical considerations, as seen in the case of Ukraine receiving wartime aid. With more than 50 countries actively engaged in loan or guarantee programs, the burden of financial assistance weighs heavily on their economic prospects. The IMF's role as a financial safety net is becoming more vital. However, the long-term consequences for borrowing nations and the potential for geopolitical influence on lending decisions require careful analysis. Bureau Report WION World is One.
Consumer products giant Unilever has opted for a major rejig as part of the restructuring. Unilever would spin off its ice cream unit and cut 7,500 jobs.
In fact, in this new cost-saving program, investors cheered the plan, boosting the company's shares by nearly 6%. The company said that the sign-off is expected to complete by the end of 2025. In fact, CEO Heinz Schumacher said that he was open to options regarding where the new entity could enlist.
But reports said that the ice cream business is in the process of moving its office to Amsterdam. Unilever's ice cream business includes popular brands such as Magnum and Ben & Jerry's. The ice cream business accounts for about 16% of Unilever's global sales.
Unilever said it aims to deliver mid-single-digit underlying sales growth and modest margin improvement after the split. The group also launched a cost-cutting program of around $869 million for the next 3 years. The proposed changes would impact around 7,500 jobs globally, with total restructuring costs anticipated to be around 1.2% of overall turnover. The cuts will affect about 5.9% of Unilever's workforce of about 120,000 people.
The move is a big statement from Schumacher, who became CEO in July. In October, he laid out plans to win back investor confidence after admitting the company had underperformed in recent years.
Well, it's now time for a quick break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. Lots more on the other side when we get back. More details from the Indian Cabinet Minister Pashupati Paras, who hails from the state of Bihar and has resigned from his post after his party was denied seats by the National Democratic Alliance. There are reports now that Paras may join the opposition camps, and a probable split in his own party may also take place. We'll get you the full report.
Also, the International Olympic Committee has announced that Russians and Belarusians will not take part in the parade of athletes at the opening ceremony of the Paris 2024 Olympics in July. We'll get you all the details right after this short break, so do not go anywhere. World DNA will be right back.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
From New York, we get you to the sandy shores of Durban, where I'll bring you all the glitz, glam, and happenings from the world of showbiz.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
On our show, we're privileged to meet all kinds of extraordinary business leaders, but honestly, I've never met one as Ankit Agarwal.
My father was in hospital, and when my father was getting discharged from the hospital, he had a really bad time in spite of him having an insurance policy. 2015 is when I joined the Kardeko group and I got a chance to build out Insurance Dekho here. I firmly believe that if you're solving for a right problem with your heart at the right place, then you will build a business which people will know on their own. So I think what my grandfather taught me and what I saw my father practicing stayed with me in life.
Welcome back to the show. You're watching World DNA.
Let's get you started with the headlines we're tracking for you at this hour. This is, of course, World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest.
Israel's restrictions on humanitarian aid for Gaza may amount to a starvation tactic that could be a war crime, says the United Nations human rights chief.
The US Supreme Court allows a Republican-backed Texas law that allows state law enforcement authorities to arrest people suspected of illegally crossing the US-Mexico border, rejects bid to block it by Biden administration.
Top former US generals say failures of the Biden administration in planning drove chaotic fall of Kabul. The generals also criticized the US embassy in Kabul for obstructing coordination on a possible evacuation plan.
North Korea's Kim Jong-un oversees a ground test of a solid fuel engine for a new type of intermediate range hypersonic missile. This as part of a program of developing national defense capability.
The city of Badaun is tensed in the state of Uttar Pradesh in India. This after a local barber hacked 2 boys to death and critically hurt a third in an axe attack. He was gunned down in an encounter hours later.
Australian Open champion Aryna Sabalenka hits the practice courts in Miami hours after her boyfriend Konstantin Koltsov died by suicide. The Belarusian will take on best friend Paula Badosa in the opener but won't attend press conferences.
Now, seeking a third straight term in power, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a campaign blitz in southern India. Back-to-back rallies, mega roadshows, fierce attacks on the opposition. The Prime Minister is leading BJP's attack for the 129 seats in the region.
But of course, there is dissent in his own party, which may hold the BJP back, at least in the state of Karnataka. Senior Karnataka BJP leader and former Deputy Chief Minister K.S. Ishwarappa skipped Prime Minister Modi's Shivamogga rally on Monday. Ishwarappa has raised a banner of revolt inside the party over denial of ticket to his son to contest the upcoming Lok Sabha elections. Ishwarappa had turned down the invitation to attend Prime Minister Modi's event.
BJP's Karnataka's trouble do not end with Shivamogga. In fact, former Chief Minister and sitting Member of Parliament from Bangalore North, D.V. Sadananda Gowda, has hinted that he may quit the party ahead of polls. Gowda also confirmed that he has received feelers from the Congress party. The former CM is set to reveal his next move today. Gowda says there is nothing about Karnataka BJP that makes it a party with a difference. And there are speculations that Gowda may opt to contest on a Congress ticket.
The BJP won 25 out of 28 Lok Sabha seats from Karnataka in 2019 general elections. The party is pushing hard to retain all of them this time. However, as veteran leaders revolt against the party, the BJP is staring at a formidable challenge in the state. Losing the Karnataka Assembly elections last year to the Congress has only added to BJP's existing troubles in the state. All right, we now shift focus to Bihar, where a lot is happening on the political front. Indian Cabinet Minister Pashupati Paras, who hails from the state, has resigned from his post after his party was denied seats by the National Democratic Alliance.
In fact, there are reports of Paras joining the opposition camps and a probable split in his own party. We decode the fast-paced political rumblings in our next report.
The battle for Bihar is expected to be one of the most engrossing contests in the upcoming general elections. Led by the BJP, the National Democratic Alliance swept the state last time, winning 39 out of 40 seats in the 2019 Lok Sabha polls. However, the NDA's vote share was just above 35%. This time, the NDA is eyeing all seats. The seat-sharing formula is sealed. The BJP will contest 17 seats, the Janata Dal United 16, Chirag Paswan's LJP 5 and HAM and RLS 1 seat each. But will it be a 2019 rerun for the NDA? Most likely not. JDU chief Nitish Kumar is seeing an erosion of support. This may have something to do with his Paltu Ram or turncoat image. The opposition has labelled the Bihar chief minister as the man who switches sides and cannot be trusted. NDA's smaller alliance partner LJP is not as formidable as it used to be in 2019 under late Union Minister Ram Vilas Paswan. The defection of Ram Vilas's brother Pashupati Paras from the NDA fold is also likely to hurt the alliance further. The Dalit votes that make up much of LJP's vote bank is expected to be split between the factions of Chirag Paswan and his uncle. The BJP, on the other hand, is the only strong force in the alliance at the moment. But that does not guarantee the alliance a comfortable win like 2019. The opposition, on the other hand, is gaining more partners. The Left Front has joined hands with the Congress RJD Grand Alliance, although the seat-sharing deal is yet to be finalized. The Congress that won the only seat for the opposition last time in Bihar is bolstered with Rahul Gandhi's Nyay Yatra, which was a crowd puller in the state. Talking about crowd pullers, former Deputy Chief Minister Tejashwi Yadav continues to be the single largest crowd getter in the state at the moment. The son of RJD Supremo Lalu Yadav is the most popular leader in the state, especially after the 2020 State Assembly polls. In 2019, the party got 15.7% votes on its own. But with Tejashwi leading the attack this time, the vote share is likely to increase. Will the Grand Alliance be able to convert the crowds to votes? And if it does, how much will it hurt the NDA? All eyes will be on June 4th to reveal the answers. Bureau Report, WION World DNA.
Well, meanwhile, Hong Kong lawmakers have unanimously passed a new tough national security bill that critics believe will curtail civil liberties.
Well, the law will take effect on the 23rd of March. The legislation known as Article 23 punishes offences including treason, sabotage, sedition, theft of state secrets, external interference and espionage. The sentences range from several years to life imprisonment. Now, the bill was presented in Hong Kong's Legislative Council stacked with pro-Beijing loyalists first on the 8th of March, and it has been approved within 2 weeks.
The new law expands a controversial national security law earlier imposed by China. That law criminalizes secession, subversion, terrorism and collusion with foreign forces in Hong Kong. The new law will have an extra-territorial effect outside of Hong Kong. Concerns have risen that it could be used to intimidate free speech in other jurisdictions.
Hong Kong, which is a former British colony, it returned to Chinese rule back in 1997. It then became the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China. Now, the framework allows the city some freedom that its mainland counterparts don't enjoy, and this includes self-governing power, limited election rights, its own currency, and a largely independent legal system. But Beijing has tried to control its influence and maintain its influence, rather, over the region.
Critics, including the United States government, says that the national security law will further narrow freedoms and could be used to eliminate dissent through the fear of arrest and detention. Well, for more on this, we are now joined by Pierre Cabeston, who is an emeritus professor at the French National Center for Scientific Research from Hong Kong. Welcome to the show, sir. My first question to you, well, the new national security law, now this comes on top of a 2020 security law, which is already imposed by China. Do tell us, why does China need this new law, and which was in fact passed within 2 weeks of it being presented?
Well, according to the Basic Law of Hong Kong, enacted in 1990, Article 23 compelled the Hong Kong Authority, after the handover in 1997, to enact a national security law. As you know, in 2003, there was an attempt to do that, which failed because people were in the street against that idea. And we had to wait until the protest movement in 2019 for Beijing to find an excuse to enact, first of all, the national security law you mentioned, which was enacted by the central government in Beijing in 2020. But still, Hong Kong Authority had to enact their own law on national security, which they just done. So now, according to Article 23, so this new law is not going to change very much the situation which has presided since the 2020. It may fill up a few loopholes in terms of national security, but I think the rule of the game are pretty well known since 2020. It's a set of very, very restrained public liberties, democracy, and political participation we have in Hong Kong because of this new national security environment.
Mr. Cabeston, now, is it a doubled-up measure by China to just ensure and really try to make sure that what happened back in 2019 in terms of the demonstrations, that does not happen ever again? Do they need Article 23 to ensure that? And also talk to us about the external interference that they have mentioned several times.
Yes, well, I think the national security law enacted in June 2020 was enough in a sense. But what is interesting is the justification mentioned by the authorities for the enactment of the new law. The justification is the violence of the movement in 2019, which is kind of a myth, because the violence on the side of the police, on the side of the demonstrators, by and large, demonstrations were peaceful. Some demonstrators destroyed some facilities, like the NPR station, but no one died. So it's a myth. The problem is with this new national security environment and both laws, there's no way for Hong Kong people to express themselves, demonstrate, to criticize the Chinese Communist Party. So now, if you criticize the Chinese Communist Party in Hong Kong, it's a crime. You can go to jail. So that's the new political environment in which we are. Secession, subversion, treason, all those things are pretty much included in many national security laws around the world. The trouble is how you define them. And so we'll see how it goes. But I think, again, the rule of the game was set already 4 years ago.
All right, that was Pierre Cabeston joining us from Hong Kong. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights, sir.
My pleasure.
Moving on, Ethiopia's largest bank has faced a major setback after a technical glitch led to customers withdrawing millions of dollars.
Well, reports indicate over $40 million were withdrawn or transferred from the state-owned commercial bank of Ethiopia. Reports indicate over $40 million were, of course, withdrawn or transferred from the state-owned commercial bank. According to reports, customers exploited the error to access more funds than their account balances allowed. The bank moved to address the issue by halting transactions a few hours after the system failure that was reported over the weekend.
During a press conference, the bank's president, Abby Sano, revealed that a significant portion of the withdrawal cash was accessed by students that led to long queues at campus ATMs. Multiple universities have urged students to return any excess funds they received. The bank has made reassurances that those who return the money will not face any legal consequence. In fact, in a statement shared on X, the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia acknowledged the service disruption but dismissed claims of a cyber attack.
The bank also shared that their ATM services are now fully operational. Ethiopia's central bank, which is responsible for overseeing the financial sector, clarified that the interruption originated from routine system security checks and that the glitch posed no threat to the bank, its customers or the broader financial system. All right, over to sports. Australian Open champion Aryna Sabalenka has hit the practice courts in Miami hours after her boyfriend and former ice hockey player Konstantin Koltsov died by apparent suicide.
In fact, the Belarusian will take on best friend Paula Badosa in the opener on Friday, but will not attend the press conferences. The Miami-Dade Police Department